Okay, so I just DNF this book, and honestly, I feel kind of sad about, right now. I feel kind of disappointed about DNFing this book because, oh my gosh, I have read a lot of reviews, rave reviews about this book, telling about how good this book is, how great it is, how fun it is. I mean, based on what it's about, it's not exactly fun kind of book, but you know what I mean. And a lot of people have been telling me about how they love this book as well. And so, unintentionally, I entered this book with a high expectation, even though I know that, historically speaking, I shouldn't be doing that. I would always end up being disappointed. But hey, after hearing all of those positive things about this book, and also hearing all about, all the good comments from my bookish friends about this book, I thought, well, maybe this book would be good. It even had a 4-star rating, an average of 4-star rating on Goodreads. So I suppose that's a good sign. But then, I already reached like 50% of this book. I still don't know what it's about. Seriously, what is this book about? I don't understand. I mean, yeah, I can sort of understand what is going on in this book, but I don't get the point of this book. So basically what happens in Station 11 is, Station 11 by Emily St. John Mandel, a Canadian author. What happens in this book is, apparently there is a devastating kind of like a pandemic that happens, and and the book starts with this with the death of this actor named Arthur Leander. He was performing this this play King Lear by Shakespeare, and while he was performing, he dies, seemingly from the virus, from the disease that would later spread and cause basically almost everybody to die. So, a very big part of humanity succumbs to this virus, and eventually, soon after that, civilization collapses. And we also see the stories, some I would say 20 something years after that collapse, which is called The Collapse, and we follow this character called Kirsten, who is actually part of a traveling symphony performing usually Shakespearean plays, and they sort of perform from one settlement to another settlement, and they move around the Great Lakes area, with this entire troops of some 20 something people, and so yeah, basically that's sort of like what is going on in this book. And throughout the narrative we also get to know the who Arthur Leander was, the person, the actor who dies at the beginning of the book. We also sort of see that Kirsten actually was there at the show when Arthur Leander dies. So Kirsten was I think around 8 years old at the time. She was there when she was little also. And so Kirsten has actually, she was born before the collapse of civilization, and now she's kind of like much older. She's an adult, and she's part of this performing troupe, moving around, performing Shakespearean plays. And we also see stories about one particular character named Miranda, who is actually the ex-wife of Arthur, who apparently makes comic book stories. And apparently the comic book stories that she creates is entitled Station 11. And apparently Station 11 is also the comic book that Kirsten likes. And she thinks that Station 11 is sort of like a rare comic book. But apparently some of the characters have seen that book as well. And I don't know, it seems like the premise of this novel is going to be about how art persists even when, you know, humanity is sort of like mostly gone. Art still persists. So we can see how Shakespearean plays are still being performed even after the collapse of civilization. We still see how this comic book of, you know, called Station 11 is still kind of like around and, you know, sort of influences the people who are living, you know, post collapse. And, you know, I think there are also other sorts of like examples of how art influences people's lives. And I think that's kind of like the premise of this novel. That's the idea that this novel really wants to, you know, to push. But I don't know, somehow it just doesn't seem to, you know, resonate with me, I guess. You know, I just don't feel that the novel does a really good job at like showing us that, you know, art is great, art is long lasting. I mean, I sort of remembered how there is kind of like this idea of art being immortal, you know, art being something that is everlasting, being explored in some of the novels, like The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt. Now, that book has sort of like a coming of age plot, and the art idea is sort of just kind of like a theme that was being explored. But you know, it's not the core thing in that novel. I personally believe, but I think that novel explores the persistence of art much better compared to this one. Now, in this one, I just don't really get it. You know, I'm just not really feeling it. You know, I don't feel the impact of art, the impact that art has on these characters. You know, many of the characters in this book, they just sort of exist, and I don't see much personalities from these characters. Even after reaching somewhere 50% into this book, I still thought that nothing much really happened, and I still don't really understand why are we reading about these characters. Like, what's the point of these characters? What are they looking for? What do they want actually? You know, what are their goals in this novel? I just don't get it. So it feels like this book is just sort of meanders between these different characters, and it sort of drags us along with them, you know, or at least it drags me along with them. I mean, other readers obviously loved it, so they probably don't feel like they were being dragged, but I was feeling I was being dragged. So yeah, it was kind of frustrating reading this novel. And yeah, at the beginning of this book, there were so many characters being introduced. You know, we have the actor Arthur. We have one of Arthur's ex-wives, Miranda. We also have Kirsten. We also have a paramedic who tried to tried to save Arthur when he collapsed. His name is Jivan, and apparently Jivan will also become the caretaker of the young Kirsten when before the collapse. And so we have that character as well. We have at least 4 characters, and then post collapse, when Kirsten is together with the traveling symphony group, we also have other members of the symphony who basically, most of them are called by the instruments that they play, which I think is a really peculiar choice. Really strange decision to call them like that, because I think that if they're not that important to be referred to by name, then why bother mentioning them at all? Like, it makes this novel feels weirdly crowded at the beginning, and it feels kind of claustrophobic. It's like you are in a small room with so many people. And remember that this traveling symphony has 20 something people, so it's like, aside from the characters like Arthur and Miranda and all that, We also have people in this symphony. And then we were also being introduced to characters in one of the settlements that looked, that seemed kind of creepy, because it was apparently a cultish group led by this guy called the Prophet. So that was, that was sort of strange as well. But what sort of put me off was that simply just add on more characters to the plethora of characters that we already have. So it's like, in that small, in that short period of time, we are being introduced to so many characters. I don't know, it's just, it's really crowded. And again, I still don't know where is this novel going, where is it going, what's the direction. It's and I feel that once you have reached 50% and you still do not know where this novel is going, I think that that is not how it should be. I think, at least my expectation on the novels I read, I would rather at least know or have some clue as to where my novel is going to take me. I don't want a setup that is like 75% of the book and and the payoff to happen only at the final 25%. That is so unbalanced. So yeah, this one was a DNF, unfortunately, and I feel kind of sad about that. But what do you think about this book? I saw so many people liked it, and there is a good chance that you're watching this, you might like this book. Maybe you have not read this book, or guess what? Maybe you have read this book and you did not like it as well. I feel like I'm in a minority here, so let me know what you think about this book. Share it in the comments below, and I'll return with different videos next time, hopefully talking about books that I love. So I'll see you again in the next video. So until then, take care, thanks for watching, and bye bye.